The Vanishing Billionaire's Wife. A tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and unforeseen redemption. Hold on to your seats, because what you're about to hear is a cautionary tale whispered in the hallowed halls of high society. A chilling reminder that even the most picture-perfect lives can shatter in an instant. They say every marriage has hidden cracks, but no one expects them to rip wide open at the worst possible moment. This is the story of a pregnant millionaire's wife, a devastating secret, a cryptic letter, and a disappearance that haunts a man forever. What would you do if your fairy tale turned into your worst nightmare overnight? Let's dive in. A golden cage, the illusion of perfection. Olivia Hayes believed she had it all. Unimaginable luxury, a dazzling mansion, and the unwavering devotion of her billionaire husband, Ethan. But in a single night, she uncovered a devastating secret that left her feeling betrayed, vulnerable, and utterly alone. Determined to break free from the double life she never knew she was trapped in, Olivia made a shocking decision. She left a cryptic letter and vanished without a trace. What Ethan didn't know was that her disappearance would become his greatest, lifelong regret. Olivia Hayes had grown accustomed to the grandeur of her life with Ethan. From the outside, their marriage was a fairy tale. She, the heiress to a thriving publishing empire. He, an ambitious billionaire investor with the famed Midas touch. They married in a lavish ceremony in the south of France, dubbed by tabloids as the wedding of the decade. From that moment, Olivia learned that in the world of the ultra-rich, illusions and masks were not just common, but essential. 4 years, the Hayes estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, was the epicenter of high society gatherings. Adorned with Renaissance paintings and modern sculptures, the mansion, an imposing structure with an impeccable white facade, was rumored to be worth nearly $70 million. The marble-floored foyer gleamed under the glow of an extravagant crystal chandelier that Olivia had personally selected at a Venice auction. Long hallways, richly embellished with antique furniture, whispered secrets of an opulent yet empty existence. Sometimes, Olivia felt like a guest in her own home, where every detail had been meticulously planned and staged by Ethan's design team. Still, a genuine affection existed between them, or at least, Olivia believed it did. They shared late dinners prepared by Michelin-starred chefs. Occasionally, they'd escape to a downtown pizzeria for a slice of famous New York pepperoni. Ethan had his flaws, but Olivia accepted them. She was no stranger to the complexities of life among the elite. Raised in a privileged family, she understood the demands placed on someone in Ethan's position: endless meetings, multi-million-dollar deals, continent-crossing trips. Since childhood, Olivia had learned that a successful marriage required a forgiving heart. Her own parents had a similar arrangement, an extravagant yet cold relationship that kept them together despite silent resentments. She tried to believe her union with Ethan was different. Deep down, she longed for a more authentic connection: nights spent talking in bed about their day, spontaneous getaways without any business agenda. Eventually, a family to cherish. When she discovered she was pregnant, she felt this would be the missing link in their love story. She clung to the idea that their child would bring with it the promise of better times. Perhaps, she thought, the small cracks between them would disappear once Ethan knew he was going to be a father. Perhaps, with the baby's arrival, the unspoken tensions would dissipate. But her illusions of love and security crumbled faster than she could have ever imagined. The unveiling, a shattered reality. Sometimes, all it takes is a single phone call to turn your world upside down. 5 months into her pregnancy, Olivia suffered from morning sickness and fatigue, but her spirits remained high. She had hope. She pictured Ethan as a loving father, holding their child in his arms, reading bedtime stories, forming the family bond she never truly had. One cold November morning, as an icy breeze rattled the windows, Olivia browsed baby furniture catalogs in her second-floor study. Bright pastel tones or neutral whites, she couldn't decide. She could imagine the baby's soft cooing echoing in the elegant room. The thought thrilled her. Her personal assistant, Emma Hayes, gently knocked on the door, carrying a stack of mail and morning packages. Among the usual letters and invitations, Olivia noticed an envelope from a Boston hospital, officially addressed to Mr. Ethan Hayes. It struck her because she knew all of Ethan's healthcare providers were in Manhattan or Greenwich, not Boston. Immediately, a chill ran down her spine. It could be a philanthropic request, a new partnership, or an event Ethan was involved in. She tried to quell her unease, but something inside told her to open the envelope. With trembling hands, she carefully broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper from a renowned obstetrician's private clinic, Dr. Albert Palmer. It was a bill for prenatal checkups and a series of laboratory tests, but they weren't in her name. In that instant, the world seemed to spin on its axis. She read the patient's name, Mia Rodriguez, and the estimated due date, shockingly close to her own. Then, the father's name on the records. Could it be a terrible misunderstanding? An administrative error? Olivia reread the page. The address matched the Boston apartment Ethan sometimes used for business trips. The father's name was clearly written, Ethan Hayes. There was no doubt who it belonged to. Olivia's heart pounded so violently she felt she might faint. A cold shiver of betrayal coursed through her veins. She clutched the armrest of her chair, unable to process what she was reading. This couldn't be real. There had to be another explanation. Identity theft, an administrative error, anything but the truth. Tears blurred her vision. When Emma, her assistant, asked if everything was all right, Olivia forced a tight smile and lied brazenly. Just a billing error, she replied, her voice wavering. I'll take care of it. But Emma noticed her trembling tone, the rigidity of her pressed lips. Are you sure, Mrs. Hayes? Perfectly fine, Olivia said quickly, grabbing the letter and hiding it from view. Please leave me alone for now. I need to make a call. The bitter confrontation. Olivia paced her study, phone in hand. She wasn't ready to call Ethan. She had to calm down. If she confronted him in this state, she would never get the answers she needed. She placed her other hand on her belly, trying to control her breathing for her child's sake. She thought of all the times Ethan came home late, claiming business meetings, the weekends he said he had to travel for urgent negotiations. She always believed him because that was her role, the understanding, trusting wife. But now, every lie clicked into place like pieces of a macabre puzzle. She dialed the number with trembling fingers. Each ring made her heart beat with agonizing rhythm. When Ethan finally answered, the sound of traffic and wind in the background was audible. He was outside. Olivia, darling, he greeted, his voice warm and familiar. That tone, which once comforted her, now almost made her sob. Ethan, I need you home. Now. Her voice trembled despite her efforts to control it. I'm in the middle of a meeting in Manhattan. Can it wait? No. Her tone hardened. It's urgent. Even from miles away, Ethan sensed her distress. All right, he agreed. I'm on my way. When he arrived, Olivia had reread the letter so many times she knew it by heart. She sat in her room, enveloped in the warm glow of the fireplace, but feeling colder than ever. Ethan burst through the door, his face tight with concern. What's wrong? Are you all right? Is it the baby? Olivia looked at him with empty eyes, not saying a single word. She handed him the envelope. Ethan took it, and as soon as he saw his name on the letter, all color drained from his face. His lips parted, but no sound came out. For the first time, Olivia saw him truly flustered, like a child caught in the midst of an unforgivable prank. Olivia, he began, his voice barely a whisper. It's not what you think. Olivia let out a bitter laugh. You don't even know what I think. Her eyes burned with fury. Enlighten me. Who is Mia Rodriguez? And why does she have a baby with your last name? Ethan seemed to stumble. He looked at the fireplace. The door. Anything but her. It was a mistake, he murmured, still clutching the letter. We had a fight, but it ended. I swear it ended. Olivia's world crumbled with each word he uttered. I never thought she'd get pregnant. I didn't know how to tell you. Her entire body shook with rage and pain. Are you telling me you have another child on the way, while I'm 5 months pregnant with ours? Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had to maintain her dignity, if only for the tiny life growing inside her. Each second felt like an eternity of anguish. Ethan tried to approach, to place his hands on her shoulders. "Olivia, I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I was an idiot. It meant nothing. Mia was just—" She pushed him away in fury. "Just what? You felt lonely?" Her voice was pure venom. "You have your wife, your pregnant wife. Ethan, if you were lonely, you could have talked to me. Instead, you betrayed me. You destroyed everything." In that moment, her entire world lost meaning. The marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the lavish dinners. It was all hollow. The vanishing act. A letter of farewell. That night, Olivia locked herself in the guest room. Ironically, she now felt like a guest in her own life. She refused to share a bed with Ethan, who paced outside the door, apologizing over and over, begging her to let him in. She turned on a classical music playlist, hoping it would calm the storm in her mind. It was useless. Each sob shook her body like a gale. She picked up her keepsake journal. She had bought it in Capri, during their honeymoon, intending to fill it with happy memories. Now it would bear witness to her worst agony. With trembling hands, she began to write. Why did he cheat? Was it my fault? What will happen to our baby? Could I ever trust him again? Each question was a dagger plunged into her heart. Sleeping was impossible. Before dawn, she found herself wandering through the house, like a ghost trapped within the walls of her own torment. And then, through the haze of her pain, an idea began to form. Plan to escape. She couldn't raise her child in a home built on lies. But where to go? Olivia wondered if she should seek refuge at her family's estate in Massachusetts, or if it was better to escape to some distant place, like Europe or Asia. Anywhere the Hayes name wasn't etched into every wall, every social conversation. By the time the sun began to rise, Olivia still hadn't made a definitive decision. But there was one thing she was sure of. She needed to leave, if only for a while. She needed air, distance, and a chance to reclaim her sanity. Ethan was desperate. From the other side of the closed door, he called her name again and again. He sent her texts. He pleaded. Olivia ignored him. Later that morning, when Ethan left for a board meeting, a meeting he couldn't cancel, Olivia knew her opportunity had arrived. She sat at her desk with a blank sheet of paper and wrote the letter that would seal her departure. Ethan, you have left such a deep wound in me that every breath I take is tainted with betrayal. Perhaps I was naive to trust you completely. I loved you. I believed in you. Now I see the cruelty in our supposed fairy tale. You have broken us in ways that no apologies or money can repair. I am leaving. I don't know when or if I will return. Our child, my child, does not deserve the environment you have created. Perhaps, with time, I will learn to forgive. But for now, I cannot even look at you. Do not look for me. You will not find me. Olivia. Her hand trembled as she signed her name, but she refused to let tears stain the page. She folded the letter precisely, slipped it into an unmarked envelope, and left it on Ethan's nightstand. Afterwards, she called a private car service, one that Ethan wouldn't control, and arranged her departure through the side gate. She took only the essentials: her passport, some cash, a few changes of clothes, her prenatal vitamins. With trembling steps, she crossed the threshold of the mansion that, for so long, had been her golden cage. The household staff, though concerned, did not stop her. They watched her leave with worried glances. As the black SUV drove away, Olivia took one last look at the life she was leaving behind. A life that wasn't what she thought she had. An illusion shattered by lies. The search and the seeker's agony. 2 days later, Ethan found the letter. He had spent the night in a luxurious Manhattan hotel after an emergency board meeting, hoping some space might calm the storm engulfing them. When he finally returned to the mansion, he found it plunged into an unsettling silence. When he asked about Olivia, the staff spoke in whispers, too fearful to reveal too much. They only told him she had left, in a car. At first, Ethan assumed she had gone to her family's estate in Massachusetts. But when he called her mother, Eleanor Hayes, he was met with a fury that made him wince. "Where is my daughter?" Eleanor demanded, her voice as sharp as a razor's edge. Olivia wasn't there. And if Eleanor ever believed in Ethan's loyalty, those illusions shattered with the venom in her voice. Ethan had no answers to give her. Panic hit him like a sledgehammer. He raced through the house, checking every room as if Olivia might appear out of nowhere. Until finally, on his nightstand, he found the envelope. His hands trembled as he opened it. Every word imprinted itself on his mind like a sentence. "Do not look for me. You will not find me." He slumped onto the edge of the bed, the letter still in his hand. For the first time in his life, he felt utterly powerless. Ethan Hayes was a man accustomed to controlling everything. He could manipulate multimillion-dollar deals, orchestrate the fate of entire corporations, but he couldn't find his own wife. A cold sweat coated his skin as he realized the magnitude of what he had done. He had always told himself that his affair with Mia Rodriguez meant nothing, that it was just a distraction, that it would never affect his marriage. But now, everything was crumbling, and his child, Olivia's baby, was slipping through his fingers too. Suddenly, the house that once held the promise of a family felt empty and accusatory. In the following days, Ethan did everything he could to find her. He hired private investigators. He used his security team. He offered money to the mansion staff, hoping someone would give him a clue. He checked credit card transactions, flight records, bank movements. Nothing. Olivia had been more cunning than he imagined. With the possible help of her friend, Sofia Vega, she had vanished without a trace. Every dead end made him more desperate. Remorse devoured him. He woke in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, tormented by nightmares of Olivia crying. He saw her face in every reflection. He heard her voice in the silence. Ethan Hayes, the man who had everything, now had nothing. Ethan found himself doing something he never imagined. Praying. He prayed that Olivia was safe, that she wouldn't harm herself, that somehow she would find the strength to forgive him. But there was no answer. Not a call. Not a hint that she was still alive. A new beginning in Mukilteo. Meanwhile, Olivia arrived in a small town outside Seattle, Mukilteo, a quiet coastal community, known for its picturesque lighthouse and ferry docks. She chose it because it was the farthest she could be from Connecticut without leaving the country. A place where neither her family nor Ethan had connections. The constant drizzle and gray sky matched her mood. Anonymity was like a balm to her wounded soul. She rented a modest cabin from an elderly widow named Elena Suarez, who had listed it for seasonal travelers. Elena, though curious about Olivia's story, accepted her vague explanation that she needed a quiet place to focus on her writing. In that small cabin, Olivia began the painful process of rebuilding herself. Each morning, she rose early, got ready, and found solace in her baby's gentle kicks, a reminder of the life she was determined to protect. She started writing in her journal more frequently, pouring out her anguish onto each page. By the time she was 6 months pregnant, her body demanded even more care. She found a local doctor, Dr. Julian Cole, a man with salt and pepper hair and a warm smile. Though he didn't pry too much into her past, he sensed her stress and recommended she see a specialist in pre- and postnatal depression. In her first session, the therapist, Dr. Marcus Peterson, an unsettling coincidence, as he shared the same last name as Mia's doctor in Boston, asked the question she most dreaded. "Tell me about the baby's father." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to forget he existed. She wanted to forget her child was half his. "He's someone I once trusted," she whispered, her voice choked. Every day was a test of her strength. Sometimes, she missed the luxuries. A chauffeur, a housekeeper, the best medical care money could buy. But she cherished the freedom of walking on the beach unrecognized. She sat on a bench facing the sea, watching ferries glide across the water, imagining a simpler life. Sometimes, the sea breeze dried her tears before they even reached her cheeks. Ethan's desperation and Mia's schemes. Meanwhile, in Ethan's world, things took an unexpected turn. With Olivia gone, Mia Rodriguez saw her opportunity. Unlike Olivia, Mia was ambitious. She used her relationship with Ethan to position herself in high society. Ethan had always intended to keep her hidden, but Olivia's sudden disappearance gave Mia the power she had always craved. She wanted recognition. She wanted financial security. She wanted a powerful last name for her child. She began calling Ethan relentlessly. She showed up at his Manhattan offices unannounced, causing whispers among employees. For Ethan, her mere presence was a constant reminder of the betrayal he had committed. He tried to buy her silence. He bought her a luxury penthouse in Boston. He set up an investment fund for the baby. He paid for every medical consultation. But Mia wasn't content with just money. She wanted his presence. To accompany her to doctor's appointments. To give her foot massages. To reassure her that she wasn't a dirty secret. But every time Ethan saw her, he also saw the pain he had caused Olivia. His life was divided into two halves. On one hand, the futile search for Olivia. On the other, the forced obligations with Mia. Some nights, Ethan preferred to sleep in his office or a local hotel, just to avoid Mia's demands. He made desperate calls to private investigation agencies, asking if there was any lead on Olivia. Nothing. Until, finally, a clue arrived. A suspicious bank withdrawal, $50,000 in cash from Olivia's personal account. From Seattle. It wasn't definitive proof, but it was something. Ethan boarded his private jet and flew to Washington, hoping to find her. But once in Seattle, he ran into roadblocks. Banks refused to give him information without a court order. He tried to bribe employees. It didn't work. All he had was a record of dates and a possible connection to a local motel. By the time he got there, Olivia had already disappeared, likely taking refuge in her small Mukilteo cabin, unaware that Ethan was so close. Driving through the rainy streets, the truth hit him. If Olivia truly didn't want to be found, he would never find her. Regret crushed him like a stone in his chest. For years, he prided himself on being able to fix any problem with money, power, or influence. Now, none of those resources could bring back the only person who truly mattered. Ethan needed her desperately. A glimmer of hope. The investigator's dilemma. Another month passed, bringing Olivia to her 7th month of pregnancy. Daily tasks became exhausting, but she refused to give in. Determined to maintain her independence, she borrowed books from the library on childbirth and parenting, devouring each chapter with eager determination. She bought baby clothes from second-hand shops, avoiding credit cards to leave no trace. Sometimes, the loneliness hit her with such intensity that she almost contacted her family. She wondered how her mother was, surely desperate with worry. She remembered her father, who had passed away years ago, and how it hurt to imagine his disappointment at seeing her struggle alone. And then there was Ethan. Despite her fury, there were fleeting, painful moments when she missed the warmth of his arms. But every time her heart softened, she remembered the humiliating betrayal. One afternoon, returning from a prenatal checkup, Olivia felt dizzy and momentarily collapsed on the steps of her cabin. Concerned neighbors called an ambulance. At the hospital, doctors informed her she was suffering from dehydration and elevated blood pressure. It was a chilling reminder. She was carrying a precious life inside her, and her stress jeopardized both her health and the baby's. Terrified, she realized she couldn't do this completely alone. She confided in Elena Suarez, her landlady, who cared for her while she was on bed rest. Elena told her own stories of heartbreak and loss, forging a silent but deep bond between them. In these small moments of tenderness, Olivia found tiny flashes of hope. Not everyone was there to betray her. Some people were simply willing to offer a helping hand. Meanwhile, Mia herself was progressing in her pregnancy. Ethan tried to fulfill his moral duty. He accompanied her to childbirth classes. He bought baby items. But everything felt forced, like a soulless play. Mia relentlessly pressured him to move in with her, to attend social events with her. Ethan always found excuses. When rumors began to circulate that Olivia Hayes had disappeared under suspicious circumstances, Mia reveled in the attention. Secretly, she leaked stories to gossip magazines. She painted Ethan as an indifferent husband, a careless father who had driven his pregnant wife away. She presented herself to the world as his new partner, the future mother of his only child. Conveniently, she omitted the existence of Olivia's pregnancy. Ethan exploded in fury. "You're making me look like a monster." Mia, nonchalant, shrugged and crossed her arms. "Maybe if you did right by me, I wouldn't have to go to the press." That night, after storming out of Mia's penthouse, Ethan sat in his car for an hour, fighting back tears of rage and desperation. He realized something brutal. He had made a series of catastrophic decisions. He dreamed of escaping this nightmare, turning back time, returning to when he had Olivia by his side and they were happy, before betrayal destroyed their marriage. But that time was gone. All he had left were Mia's manipulations, his vanished wife, and the child he was losing more of each day. Desperate, Ethan turned to Daniel Foster, a private investigator with an impeccable track record. Daniel had a background in law enforcement and adhered to an unbreakable code of ethics. At first, he was wary of working for the infamous billionaire. But, for a considerable sum and the possibility of giving Olivia true closure, he accepted. For weeks, Daniel reviewed flight records, rental car receipts, potential hideouts. He interviewed Olivia's close friends, like Sofia Vega, who only offered cryptic answers. "Olivia is safe. That's all you need to know." Daniel noticed something important. Olivia had been meticulous. She used aliases, untraceable funds. She had prepared for this. Then a breakthrough. Daniel tracked her journey from Connecticut to Seattle. He obtained surveillance footage from ferry terminals. Finally, a key clue. A blurry image of a pregnant woman on a ferry to Mukilteo. Her profile was unmistakable. Daniel traveled to Mukilteo in silence. He checked lodging options, looking for any sign of a pregnant woman matching Olivia's description. Days of fruitless searching until a stroke of luck. An elderly neighbor mentioned, "There's a young pregnant woman from out of town. She lives in a small cabin." Daniel asked subtle questions. The woman's name was Olivia. The final stroke of luck came when he saw her in person. She was leaving a grocery store. Daniel recognized her immediately. The same luminous eyes, though now tinged with sadness. She wore a loose coat, but her belly was unmistakable. She looked thinner. Her face showed exhaustion. Daniel watched her from a distance. He didn't approach. Instead, he discreetly followed her back to her cabin. He had confirmation. Olivia was there. Now he faced a dilemma. Should he inform Ethan immediately? Or should he? Daniel decided to speak with Olivia first. In the end, it was his own principles that guided him. A fragile encounter. The PI's revelation. That night, he knocked on her cabin door. Olivia opened it, her expression immediately fearful. "Yes." Daniel removed his hat, revealing a sympathetic gaze. "Ms. Hayes, my name is Daniel Foster. I'm a private investigator hired by your husband." Olivia tried to close the door immediately, but Daniel gently placed his hand to stop it. "He doesn't know I'm here." "Not yet," he said in a calm tone. "He's desperate to find you, but I want to respect your wishes. May I come in? I just want to talk." Olivia hesitated. There was something in the sincerity of Daniel's tone and the kindness in his gaze that made her waver. Finally, she let him in. The small living room of the cabin was filled with half-packed boxes and baby items. Daniel noticed the disarray, signs of a life in transition. Olivia motioned for him to sit, though her body language screamed distrust. "What do you want?" she asked, crossing her arms protectively over her belly. "I need to know if you're safe," Daniel replied simply. "Your husband is sick with worry. He doesn't know if you're still pregnant." Olivia's eyes blazed with fury and pain. "Yes, I'm still pregnant. No thanks to him." Daniel nodded solemnly. "I'm not here to defend him. As I understand it, he made terrible mistakes, but he's still worried about you. If you want to stay hidden, I'll respect that. I just need to confirm you're all right. Then I'll close this case and tell him to leave you alone." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. She had wanted so badly to cut all ties. But a part of her needed closure. She never expected a private investigator to care about her side of the story. With a trembling voice, she spoke for the first time about the betrayal, about Mia, about the letter, about her desperation to protect her child from an environment built on lies. Daniel listened in silence, without interrupting, without judging. When she finished, he simply said, "I won't reveal your location if you don't wish it. I'll just tell him you're alive and safe. But you should know something. He might still be looking for you. This is eating him alive." Olivia lowered her gaze. Her voice broke. "I don't know if I can ever forgive him, but I don't want to see him." Daniel nodded. "That's what I'll tell him." The road to redemption. A father's agony. Back in New York, Daniel gave Ethan the news. "I found her." Ethan held his breath. "Is she okay? Is the baby okay?" "Yes, she is pregnant with your child. Medically, she appears stable." Ethan felt overwhelming relief. "Where is she? Tell me, Daniel, please." Daniel shook his head. "She doesn't want to be found. She specifically said she doesn't want to see you. She wants peace. She wants to focus on her pregnancy." For a moment, Ethan felt like exploding. He wanted to scream. He wanted to do the impossible to bring her back. But something in Daniel's firm gaze stopped him. Ethan had already caused enough damage. He could only ask one last question. "Is she happy?" Daniel paused. He weighed his words carefully. "She's coping. She's healing, I would say. But this has been extremely difficult for her." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he whispered. In the following weeks, Ethan tried to prove he wasn't the same reckless man. He stopped Mia's attempts to drag his name through the tabloids. He issued legal warnings against her. He made it clear he wouldn't be manipulated. Mia was furious. "You're just discarding me like trash." Ethan made one thing clear to her. He would financially support the child they conceived, but he would never be forced into a relationship. At the same time, his empire was faltering. Hayes Capital stock dropped. Investors doubted his stability. The board of directors threatened to oust him. It was then that Ethan did something unthinkable. He publicly announced he would take a leave of absence. He would step away from company operations to focus on his family. For the first time in his life, the man who had risked everything for ambition decided to stop. He sought therapy. He tried to make amends for his mistakes. Perhaps it was too late. Perhaps not. Only time would tell. A new life. A new hope. Month 8 of pregnancy. A stormy night. Olivia's water broke prematurely. Elena Suarez found her doubled over in pain, her breathing ragged. Frightened, she called 911. The ambulance arrived with sirens wailing, pushing through the torrential rain. At the hospital, doctors discovered a complication. Preeclampsia. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. Both she and the baby were at risk. They rushed her to an emergency C-section immediately. Alone. Adrift. From somewhere far away, she heard the frantic beeping of monitors, the hurried voices of the medical team. More supplies, more doctors. She had never felt so vulnerable. Between waves of pain, she whispered a name. Not out of love, not out of desire, but out of pure instinct. Ethan. The nurses worked quickly. What seemed like an eternity ended with a sharp cry. A fragile child was lifted into the air. Small, beautiful. His arrival was announced with an insistent, delicate wail. Olivia, caught between pain and unconsciousness, could barely see the moment her son entered the world. Her eyes slowly closed, and then everything went dark. She heard kind voices telling her the baby was breathing, that he was small but stable. She struggled to keep her eyes open, to see the miracle she had carried within her for so many months. When she finally glimpsed him, tiny, wrapped in a blanket, tears of relief and awe streamed down her cheeks. But her ordeal wasn't over. Preeclampsia caused severe hemorrhaging, and Olivia went into critical condition. The medical team fought to stabilize her. For agonizing hours, her fate was uncertain. The news reached Daniel Foster, who had remained silently in Mukilteo, sensing Olivia might need help sooner than expected. Alarmed, he broke his promise to keep her location secret. He reasoned that if Olivia didn't survive, or if she needed specialized medical attention, Ethan had the resources to help. At midnight, he called Ethan. When the line connected, his voice was urgent. "Hayes, we have a problem." Ethan sat bolt upright in bed. "What happened?" "Olivia had an emergency C-section. She might die." There was a deathly silence on the line. "Where is she?" Ethan could barely speak. "Mukilteo General Hospital." Ethan took the first private flight to Seattle. His heart pounded with terror. Had he arrived too late? When Ethan burst into the hospital, his hair disheveled and eyes hollow from the overnight flight, the nurses could barely believe their eyes. A billionaire in their humble clinic. He found Daniel pacing nervously in the waiting room. "She's in surgery," Daniel informed him. "The baby is in the neonatal ICU. He's premature, but stable." For a moment, the reality hit him like thunder. A son, his son, fighting for his life in an incubator. And Olivia, his wife, between life and death. The weight of regret fell on Ethan with crushing intensity. He pressed the palms of his hands against his face, tears escaping uncontrollably. Hours later, an exhausted doctor emerged from the operating room. "Mr. Hayes." Ethan sprang to his feet. The doctor spoke in a firm but gentle voice. "Your wife is in recovery. We were able to control the hemorrhage and lower her blood pressure. She's not out of the woods yet, but for now she's stable." Relief flooded him, though guilt still coiled around him like a snake. Ethan nodded, tears blurring his vision. The doctor offered a faint smile. "She may remain unconscious for a while. In the meantime, you can see your son in the ICU." Trembling with adrenaline, Ethan followed the doctor down a long hallway. Through the glass walls of the ICU, he saw the incubator. A tiny body connected to tubes and monitors, struggling with each breath. A nurse waved him over to wash his hands, don a gown, and approach carefully. When he saw his son up close, everything else disappeared. The scandal, Mia, the money, nothing mattered more than that fragile life. Tiny hands clenched into miniature fists, eyelids that trembled softly. Ethan placed a trembling hand on the incubator. His tears dripped onto the sterile floor. "You're beautiful." His voice broke. He didn't even know his name. Olivia never told him. He prayed for the chance to discuss it with her, to hold his son with Olivia by his side. After a few minutes, the nurse suggested he let the baby rest. Ethan nodded, his heart thrumming. Then he headed to the recovery room. The hallways were silent, save for the hum of fluorescent lights. A compassionate nurse pointed him to Olivia's room. When he entered, he stopped dead. Olivia lay pale and still, tubes connected to her arms, an oxygen mask covering her mouth. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only assurance that she was still alive. Ethan felt an avalanche of regret. The woman who once danced with him at galas. The woman who used to laugh at his jokes. Now she seemed so fragile. Slowly, he approached her bedside. He knelt beside her. He took her cold hand in his. "I'm sorry." His voice broke. "Please come back. If not for me, do it for our son." He didn't know how long he stayed there, speaking to her in whispers. Nurses came in occasionally, checking her vital signs. They all smiled kindly at him. Perhaps they understood the tragedy in that room. A faint glimmer of connection. 2 days later, Olivia's eyes slowly opened. A cold, sterile light blinded her for a moment. She felt weak, exhausted, disoriented. The first thing she saw was Ethan's face. Tense, tired, with traces of dried tears on his cheeks. Seeing him, her heart filled with mixed emotions. Relief because she wasn't alone. Fury because he was the last person she wanted to see. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Only a harsh whisper escaped her lips. A nurse hurried to help her, raising the bed slightly and giving her a sip of water. Ethan leaned towards her, his voice trembling. "The baby is okay." Olivia blinked, confused. "He's in the ICU, but the doctors say he's stable." A whirlwind of love rushed through Olivia at that. She tried to sit up, but groaned in pain from the C-section. "Where is he?" she murmured. When you're stable, I'll take you to see him. Ethan reached out to touch her hand, but she pulled it away. Her confusion turned to rage. What are you doing here? Her voice was a harsh, strained whisper. Ethan, leave. I had to come. I couldn't let anything happen to you or our son. I know you said not to look for you, but when I found out what happened, his eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Olivia. Olivia trembled, not just from the effects of the anesthesia, but from the flood of emotions suffocating her. Her voice was a sharp whisper. You have no right to be here, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I told you to leave me alone. He flinched, tears shining in his own eyes. I know, and I'll go if that's what you want, but please let me help you through this. Let me be there for our son. She was torn. She despised him for the betrayal, but she feared facing all of this alone. However, she couldn't simply erase what he had done. They spoke little more that day. Doctors focused on Olivia's recovery, giving her medication to stabilize her blood pressure and ease her pain. Ethan fell asleep in a chair outside her room, refusing to leave the hospital, even though she barely acknowledged him. A shared parenthood, a lingering shadow. Over the next week, Olivia regained strength, enough to be taken to the neonatal ICU. The first time she saw her son, tears streamed down her face. She reached out to the incubator to gently stroke his tiny hand, marveling at his small fingernails. Ethan stood beside her, reverently silent. When the baby grasped her finger, she let out a sigh, overwhelmed by the depth of maternal love that washed over her. She wished for a world where she and Ethan could share that happiness without the shadow of betrayal lurking behind them. As the days passed, both parents attended classes on neonatal care, learning how to care for a premature baby. They changed tiny diapers under the watchful eyes of the ICU nurses, learned CPR techniques, and held him skin to skin. In those moments, their hostility paused, replaced by a mutual devotion to the fragile life they had created. Olivia watched Ethan interact with their son. His trembling care, the gentle way he whispered lullabies. The child awakened something in both of them, reminding them of the love they once shared. But Olivia couldn't forget Mia's existence, or the baby Mia carried. One afternoon, Olivia mustered the courage to ask, "What about her? What about Mia's baby?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I'm supporting her financially, but I'm not with her. Mia is about 7 months pregnant. I know I'll have responsibilities there, but no, I don't live with her. I don't want a relationship." Olivia closed her eyes, exhaling. "This is so complicated," she murmured. He nodded, shame coloring his cheeks. "I wish I could change what I did. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I promise I'll be here for you, for him, if you let me." A day later, doctors cleared the baby to move to a less critical section of the ICU. Every small advance felt like a cause for celebration. Despite the complexities, Olivia found herself leaning on Ethan's presence. She needed help, both emotionally and physically, especially due to her delicate recovery. The tension between them remained like an open wound, but necessity forced them into an uneasy truce. Tentative steps towards healing. 2 weeks after the birth, Olivia was discharged, while their son remained in the hospital a little longer. She dreaded returning to the remote cabin. Its steep stairs and isolated environment felt intimidating for a recovering mother. Ethan offered a suite in a nearby hotel, with full medical staff if needed. She hesitated. Accepting his offer meant acknowledging him as part of her support system, but she had no alternative that would ensure the best care for her son. Reluctantly, she accepted. Thus began a tentative cohabitation. They spent hours each day in the ICU, learning everything they could to prepare for the baby's discharge. Olivia felt physically and emotionally drained, sometimes feeling her composure slipping. In those moments, Ethan would silently take her hand or pass her a tissue, never pressing for more. Nights were another story. She insisted on having her own bedroom, while he stayed in an adjacent suite. The boundaries were clear. They were partners in parenthood, nothing more. Yet, unspoken feelings bubbled beneath the surface. One night, Olivia woke from a nightmare, reliving the horrors of the emergency C-section. She couldn't breathe, her heart pounding in her chest. She stumbled into the suite's common living area, where she found Ethan hunched over a laptop, reviewing business documents. He immediately rose at the sight of her distress. Without a word, he guided her to the sofa. He gave her a glass of water and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. In that moment, she didn't pull away. She clung to him, sobbing, as the fear of nearly dying overwhelmed her. He stroked her hair and whispered apologies again and again for everything he had done. When her tears subsided, fatigue pulled her into sleep. Their gazes met, and for the first time in months, a faint flicker of old feelings passed between them. But the next morning, Olivia reminded herself that healing was not the same as forgetting. Mia's final play and Ethan's commitment. Meanwhile, Mia Rodriguez was furious about Ethan's apparent abandonment. She learned of his presence in Seattle and demanded to know why he wasn't supporting her in the late stages of her pregnancy. She left voicemails filled with rage and threats to expose more details to the tabloids. Ethan, already drowned in guilt, returned her calls only to assure her he would continue to support her financially. His patience with her manipulations was quickly wearing thin. "I'm in Seattle because my wife nearly died giving birth to our son. I am fulfilling my duties as a father," he stated bluntly. "But I'm carrying your child too. When are you going to be here for us?" Mia's voice was sharp. Guilt pierced him. Two innocent children were now entwined in this saga. "I will support my son," he said, his voice tense. "But I cannot be in two places at once." In the final weeks of Mia's pregnancy, she intensified her legal threats, claiming that if Ethan didn't publicly claim paternity, she would leak scandalous details, including private text messages, to the press. For the first time in his life, Ethan found himself not caring about public opinion. All that mattered was ensuring Olivia and their son survived this ordeal. Still, for the sake of the unborn child, he tried to maintain peace, assigning lawyers to handle Mia's demands. A discreet settlement was reached. Mia would receive a substantial monthly allowance and a trust fund for the baby, conditional on her signing a confidentiality agreement. Reluctantly, she accepted, though her resentment lingered, rebuilding trust one step at a time. The baby, whom Olivia and Ethan finally named Leo, was discharged from the hospital at 6 weeks old. Holding him in her arms, Olivia felt a rush of love that overshadowed her persistent pain. Leo was small but strong with alert, curious eyes. Returning to the remote cabin was no longer an option for Olivia. The place was too isolated. However, she wasn't ready to return to Connecticut and the life she had left behind. Unsure of her next step, she found herself leaning on Ethan's resources out of necessity. They rented a modest townhome near the hospital so Leo could be close to his pediatric specialists. Though the arrangement was meant to be temporary, it forced them into a domestic rhythm. Late-night feedings, diaper changes, midnight lullabies. In each shared moment, tension intertwined with deep tenderness. As the weeks turned into months, Olivia noticed changes in Ethan. He had become more introspective, less domineering. There were no more frantic business calls every half hour, no constant flights to distant meetings. He focused on Leo's health, Olivia's recovery, and attending therapy sessions with a marital conflict specialist. It was in one of these therapy sessions that Olivia finally let go of some of her pent-up anger. With trembling words, she recounted every detail of her pain, tears spilling into her lap. Ethan listened without defending himself, acknowledging each accusation with raw honesty. He spoke of his own insecurities, how he feared not being enough, and how he had sought validation in the worst possible way. It wasn't a justification, but it helped Olivia see the imperfect human behind the betrayal. "I'm not sure if I'll ever trust you again," she confessed. "At least not like before." Ethan swallowed hard. "I accept that. I know I must earn any measure of trust. If it takes a lifetime, so be it." An unexpected turn and a mother's strength. 3 months after Leo's birth, an unexpected call disrupted the delicate balance. Mia had given birth to a daughter, Isabel, prematurely, facing similar complications. Despite their fractured relationship, Mia reached out to Ethan, desperate. Her baby needed specialized care that the local hospital couldn't provide. Though Olivia burned with jealousy at the mention of Mia, she understood that an innocent child was in distress. She saw the anguish on Ethan's face and knew that ignoring Mia's plea would condemn him to a life of guilt. Finally, Olivia did something that even surprised herself. She encouraged him to go, to ensure the baby received proper care. With a jolt, Ethan left for Boston. He arranged top-tier medical transport for Mia's newborn. He stayed long enough to confirm that Isabel's condition stabilized under the care of pediatric specialists. Then, determined to prove his sincerity, he returned to Seattle within a week. During his absence, Olivia found herself missing his presence more than she expected. She saw herself in the mirror holding Leo, recalling the nights when Ethan stood behind her, guiding her hands. She realized that even if their marriage never fully healed, she valued having a partner to share the burden of parenthood. When Ethan returned, exhausted, they had a long conversation. "Isabel is stable," he informed her. "I'll be going to Boston periodically for her. I owe her that." Olivia nodded, her gaze drifting to Leo, who slept peacefully in her arms. "I can't fault you for that," she said softly. The days that followed were filled with a kind of contained acceptance. They understood that the future would be complicated, but they also recognized that they were united by their love for their son, a love that overshadowed the wreckage of the past. The path forward, forgiveness and new beginnings. The final turning point arrived on a warm summer day, 6 months after Leo's birth. Olivia, now stronger and more confident in her role as a mother, made a decision. She needed to visit her family in Massachusetts to mend some relationships. She invited Ethan to accompany her, though she wasn't sure if it was the right decision. They arrived at her mother's estate, the tension palpable. Eleanor, stern-faced, waited with crossed arms, but as soon as she saw Leo, her rigidity melted. She took her grandson into her arms, tears brimming. She looked at her daughter, who stood awkwardly next to Ethan. In a private moment, Eleanor confronted her son-in-law. "I trusted you to guard my daughter's happiness, and you failed her terribly," she said. "I know," Ethan replied, his head bowed, "and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends." Her mother watched him for a long moment. "If Olivia can find it in her heart to forgive you, I will too. But you better not betray her again. There will be no third chance." Ethan nodded, tears in his eyes. That night, in the quiet of a guest room, Olivia asked him the question that weighed on her heart. "Do you still love me?" His eyes filled with tears. "With everything I have left," he whispered. "I feel like I had to lose you to realize how much you mean to me." She sighed, cradling Leo against her chest. "I'm not sure if our marriage can be saved," she admitted. "But for him, I'm willing to try." He gently took her free hand. "That's all I can ask for." Over the next year, Olivia and Ethan took small steps toward rebuilding trust. They co-parented Leo with love and care. They also managed the complexities of Ethan's relationship with Isabel, ensuring she received the support and security she deserved, without infringing on Olivia's emotional boundaries. Mia remained a persistent presence, but kept her distance. Her interactions with Ethan were limited to their child's well-being. Therapy sessions continued. There were countless discussions, tears, and nights where Olivia slept in a separate room to process her tangled emotions. But there were also shared victories. Leo's first tooth, his first steps, his first birthday moments that reminded them of the bond they shared beyond all the pain. Finally, Olivia agreed to move back to Greenwich on her own terms. They sold the enormous estate that once symbolized their fractured marriage and moved into a smaller, more family-oriented home. Together, they decorated Leo's room, filling it with bright colors and whimsical designs. Olivia insisted on working part-time at her family's publishing house, wanting independence and a sense of self beyond her role as wife and mother. It wasn't perfect. The shadows of betrayal never completely disappeared, but Ethan's remorse and dedication were genuine. Through daily acts of trust-building, Olivia realized she could love him again, though cautiously, with the lessons of heartbreak etched into her memory. Ethan, for his part, stepped back from the relentless pursuit of power that once defined him. He spent more time at home, savoring everyday moments. He attended marriage retreats, read books on emotional intimacy, and expressed his gratitude for every second chance Olivia offered him. And so, they embarked on a new path, one that was neither a fairy tale nor a tragedy, but a testament to resilience. Their story became a constant reminder that betrayal can shatter lives, but forgiveness can slowly stitch them back together, fragile piece by fragile piece. In the end, Olivia Hayes proved that even the greatest heartbreak can be met with unwavering strength. By forging her own path, she discovered that love doesn't have to vanish in the face of betrayal. Instead, it can transform into something more honest, albeit far from easy. Ethan learned that wealth and power mean nothing without respect and loyalty, and he spent his days striving to become a man worthy of a second chance. Their journey was steeped in pain, but illuminated by hope, showing us that sometimes the hardest struggles yield the greatest rewards, if we dare to believe in redemption. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster. If you found Olivia and Ethan's story captivating, heartbreaking, or simply relatable, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends who love a good drama, and subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories like this. Your support helps us bring more powerful tales to life. Until next time, stay inspired. What do you think about Olivia and Ethan's journey? Do you believe trust can ever be fully rebuilt after such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments below.